Split quarter square triangles are super easy to make. These units will make up the pinwheels in my black balsam quilt pattern. Before I get started with the actual demo, I wanted to show you the anatomy of two finished quarter square triangles. As the name suggests, half of the square is made up of a full large triangle and the other half are two quarter triangles. The interesting part is when you make two at a time, they come out as mirror images. So let's get into it. If you're watching this from a link in the Black Balsam quilt pattern, the process I'm about to show you is on page 15. And then I'm actually going to show you how to trim them as well, which is on page 16. So we start off very simply, just like you do for half square triangle method, two at a time. So I've got my two squares and I've drawn a line down the center, and I'm going to go to my sewing machine and sew a 1/4 inch on each side. So I'll be right back. So I followed the half square triangle two at a time method, and I've got my 4 HSTs, which I have pressed to the darker fabric. Grab one of your solid fabric in the Black Balsam pattern. This is BG4, and you've got one of your HSTs that you just made. So you're simply going to mark this one. Last time we marked it here and we sewed and we cut and we created an HST. Now you're going to do the exact same marking down the center this way. And you want to try to be pretty accurate because in the split quarter square triangles you want a nice center point. So you're actually looking for this to be perpendicular, which it should be because this is a square. You can sort of eyeball, I can see this is perpendicular. So you will mark, let's see, what will I use? I'll just use a pencil, which you'll be able to see. I'm marking the center line. You know, just be careful going over the seam that your ruler doesn't shift. So I've marked my center line. Now I don't typically, for half square triangles, I don't mark my sewing lines because I'm using the middle as a guide and I'm using my foot to do a 1/4 inch on each side. I recommend for this second step of split quarter square triangles that you do actually mark where you're going to sew. It just gives you more of a guide, and again, you're trying to get to a really nice center point. So I'm just going a 1/4 inch on each side. And oopsie. And those are the lines you're going to sew on, just like you would for a half square triangle. Not on the center, but a 1/4 inch to each side. Okay. Let me also mention that if you're making black balsam and you fell in love with the exact fabric pull that I used, let me just show you something because I don't want you to get there and wonder what the heck. So when you're marking this one, obviously if I use a pencil, I'm only going to see it up here. I'm not really going to see it here. But here's what I do. I use a pencil on the white, and then I use a white chalk, and I just use that one down here. So that's how I solved the line issue. Now I've got this HST marked from the other corner to the other corner, and I'm literally following the exact same process as making an HST. I'm putting these together. Let's pin this. If you can make a half square triangle, you can make a split quarter square triangle, which I don't know why I find that so hard to say. Okay. So I'm going to do that for the other 3 because I want to show you how a whole pinwheel comes out. But it's the exact same thing. So I'm going to take this to the sewing machine. I'm going to do this on all 4, and I'll come back and show you what those look like before we then trim. I'm back. Okay. So I followed the exact same method on all 4. And just like an HST, we are going to cut down the center line. And spoiler alert, when we do that, ta-da! Okay, let me cut down the center line of all of these and then we'll move on. Okay, so next you're just going to press, as it says in the pattern, toward the darker fabric. So let's go do that and I'll be right back. Okay, I've pressed all of my split quarter square triangles to the darker fabric. And so they're all pressed that way. And now we're going to trim them. So the most important part of trimming, the key is the center point. So because I know not everyone loves math the way that I do, I put that in the pattern. You'll see that it says center point. So I'm using the crib size here. And so if you see in the pattern for black balsam on page 16, you see under the trimming sizes, it's telling me to trim the crib size to 4¼ inches. And the center point is 2⅛. For the sake of this demo, I've taken a dry erase marker and gone to the 2⅛ this direction and 2⅛ that direction. And that is the center of my 4¼ inch trimmed split quarter square triangle that I'm after. You don't necessarily have to mark yours, but that's what it means by the center point. And I'll show you how that works. So here we go. The center point is obviously the center point. And just like as if you were trimming a half square triangle using a square ruler, you would trim this side and then you would trim this side. And you're doing the exact same thing, but you're keeping an eye on that center point. And I've purposely in the black balsam pattern, I've worked in enough fabric so that you have some wiggle room so that you can find the center point, put that as closely as you can there. And I'm also keeping track of the 45-degree angle line, which should be on the seam between your quarter square triangles. If it's not exact, everything's going to be just fine. But you want to try to do that as best you can. And then I will trim this side and this side. Then we'll rotate our fabric so that we can do the other side. And I'm lining up the 4¼ because that's what we're trimming to. But then I start adjusting for the center point. You don't want to adjust too much, but you can sort of, cheat a smidge. Let's call it a smidge to try to keep that center point where it is. Okay, I'm going to do that one more time. But there is my, you can see on here, 4¼ 4¼ split quarter square triangle. It's beautiful. I'll show you the trimming one more time. Putting my center point, which was the 2⅛, in the center. I'm lining up my 45-degree angle with the seam there. I switched to my rotating mat because I like it. Okay. Now I'm looking at 4¼ and then ever so slightly adjusting. Not much though, because you want to keep that pretty close to 4¼ And there you have it. So we've got our beautiful trimmed split quarter square triangles, 8 of them, and I'm going to separate them. Remember I said they come out as mirror images of each other every time you cut after step 2. And so I'm going to put the like pieces together and I'll show you why. It actually doesn't really matter, but I like how the seams look and come out when you use the 4 of the same type to build one pinwheel and 4 of the other to build the other. So if you see here, these are exactly the same. So I'll find the other 2 of those. That one is the other variation. That's the other variation. There's one that goes there, 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 and there. So let's use this set to make the top and this to make the bottom. And the point goes that way. And then I follow the point around. I almost picture it like it's actually moving. These are the exact same piece. You're just arranging them to make a beautiful pinwheel. And the reason I like to use the same exact pieces for one whole pinwheel is you get this nice square as a seam, whereas if you mixed and matched the different mirror images, you could still make this pinwheel, but your seams would not be a nice square. So that's why I do that. So that's your top pinwheel in the black balsam pattern. And then for the bottom pinwheel, it's going to look like it's spinning this direction. So I just follow the point, whoosh, and then like that, and then like that. And again, you see the nice square seam that it makes around the pinwheel. So there you have it. Now you know how to make split quarter square triangles, and now you know how easy it is. It's following the HST 2 at a time method. You're just rotating a piece in the second step, and this is what comes out. So happy quilting and happy pinwheel making.